So picture this, a system where your daily habits, like, say, buying dumbbells for a home workout, or even just stocking up your pantry, could actually flag you as a potential threat. Today, we are breaking down a fascinating analysis of the incredibly sophisticated, multi-layered surveillance system in China's Xinjiang region. We're going to explore how technology and massive human networks are woven together to create a system of control that is, well, it's pretty unprecedented.
All right, so here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at the official mandate, the why behind the whole system. Then, we'll dive into the all-seeing technology and the human networks that make it all work on the ground. After that, we'll get into the core logic of how the population is sorted. And finally, we'll unpack the incredibly high societal costs of this kind of control.
So, how does a system on this massive scale even come into being? To really understand the mechanics, we first have to ask, what's the official justification? What is the stated purpose behind all of this?
At the heart of all this is one key concept, Weiwen. It translates to stability maintenance. And you gotta understand, this isn't just a policy. It's the fundamental philosophy, the core paradigm that the party state is institutionalized to manage society and, really, to prevent any kind of instability.
So what's the official story here? Well, the stated objective is to achieve social stability and enduring peace. And this goal is framed as a direct response to what the authorities have labeled the three evil forces. That's terrorism, religious extremism, and splitism, which is basically just advocating for separation from the country.
Okay, so with that mandate for absolute stability in mind, let's dive into the first huge piece of this puzzle, the vast technological machine that's been designed for constant, unending monitoring.
The whole digital layer is built on this foundation called grid-style social management. Just imagine taking entire cities and towns and literally carving them up into small, manageable squares on a map. Each one of those little grids has a person responsible for it, ensuring, and this is a quote from an official, that there are no blind spots and no blank spaces.
And to give you a sense of the sheer physical infrastructure that's been built to support that digital grid, get this. More than 7,300 of these convenience police stations have been built or renovated. They're basically the on-the-ground command centers for each grid, set up to respond to any flagged issue in literally less than a minute.
What's really telling here is the language that's used to talk about this tech. One Chinese journalist described the camera network as clairvoyant eyes, giving authorities the power to solve problems with just a click of the mouse. That phrasing, it suggests this almost magical belief in the power and infallibility of the technology itself.
And the toolkit they're using? Well, it is extensive. We're talking high-def cameras with facial recognition literally everywhere, GPS tracking, and the systematic collection of a huge range of biometric data, from iris scans and voice prints to DNA. It even gets down to mandatory surveillance apps on smartphones and Wi-Fi sniffers that monitor all the network traffic in an area. So where does all this incredible amount of data actually go? It all gets funneled into a central system, the Integrated Joint Operations Platform, or IJOP. You can think of it as the technological brain of the whole operation. It uses AI to crunch all these different data streams, flag patterns it deems suspicious, and enable predictive policing, basically trying to spot threats before they even happen. But here's the thing, technology alone can't give you total coverage. The system also relies on a massive human element to, as they put it, go the last mile, with actual face-to-face surveillance. A huge part of this is a campaign called Fenghuju. Now, officially, its mission sounds pretty positive, right? Sending party cadres into villages to understand people's needs and improve their lives. The reality, though, is that this kind of assistance is completely intertwined with monitoring and gathering intelligence. And when these cadres show up at people's homes for these mandatory visits, they have a very specific script to follow. They have to say 8 things to promote party policies, but then they also have to ask 8 questions about people's personal and professional lives and check 8 things for anything that might be considered suspicious.
And if you're wondering about the scale of all this, well, it's absolutely staggering. In a related program, this one called Becoming Kin, 1.1 million party officials have been paired up with 1.6 million villagers. These officials are required to visit, stay with, and then report back on the private thoughts and daily activities of their assigned relatives.
Okay, so we've seen the tech, and we've seen the people on the ground, but what's the point of collecting all this data and information? What's the real endgame here? Let's get into the core logic of the system.
So it really all boils down to one thing, social sorting.
The system's primary job is to categorize every single citizen into one of two simple groups: normal, which means trustworthy, or deviant, which means abnormal and a potential threat that needs to be managed.
And this is where it gets really eye-opening. The kinds of things that can get you flagged as deviant, well, the list is incredibly broad. There are 75 behaviors officially listed as symptoms of religious extremism, and they include everyday things, like not drinking alcohol, buying dumbbells to exercise, or even just having a lot of food stored at your house.
So what happens if the system sorts you into that deviant box? The consequence is something that's officially called transformation through re-education. Individuals get sent to these large facilities, which are called vocational training centers, for mass internment and ideological reshaping.
Okay, so for our final piece, let's step back and look at the bigger picture here. What's the profound impact that a system like this has on the very fabric of a society? What is the true cost of this level of control?
The pioneer of surveillance studies, David Lyon, once wrote that surveillance is a solvent of trust, and that quote just perfectly captures the core societal consequence that this analysis points to: the systematic dissolving of trust between neighbors, between friends, and even within families.
Now, this is a really fascinating point. A lot of us might immediately think of George Orwell's 1984 and its all-seeing Big Brother. But the analysis argues that the reality in Xinjiang is actually much closer to Kafka's novel The Trial. And what's the key difference? It's not the certainty that you're always being watched. It's a paralyzing insecurity from not even knowing the rules of the giant, mysterious bureaucracy that's judging your every move.
And look, this isn't just some abstract literary idea. The analysis draws a direct line to the Stasi in East Germany. The decades of Stasi surveillance created this deep-seated distrust that, according to studies, still has a negative impact on social cohesion and even economic performance to this very day.
Which leaves us all with this one massive question. The analysis details a system of almost unimaginable scope and sophistication, but it also forces us to think about the bigger picture. What really is the true long-term cost of building an entire society on a foundation of total surveillance?